In the dim light of early morning, when the city's harsh realities seemed to merge with the soft hues of dawn, there lived a young girl named Eliza. With a heart too vast for her humble means, she was known throughout her crumbling neighborhood for the simple kindness that shone through even the toughest days. Eliza's world was one of scarcity. A small apartment above a dilapidated tenement, empty cupboards, and the constant hum of distant sirens. Yet, amidst these hardships, there remained a spark of hope, fueled by her innate belief in the possibility of miracles. That morning, as the chilly air hinted at an approaching winter, Eliza prepared her modest lunch. A slice of bread with a smear of homemade jam, wrapped neatly in a faded cloth. It was all she had, yet it meant the world to her. She ventured out into the streets, where the city's unyielding concrete jungle met the rawness of human struggle. As she walked along a narrow alley, her eyes caught sight of a pitiful creature. A gaunt, malnourished dog whose ribs jutted out in a desperate display of hunger. The dog's eyes, filled with a mix of pleading and sorrow, mirrored a vulnerability that resonated with Eliza's own life. Without hesitation, she knelt beside the animal and offered her lunch. In that tender moment, as she shared her meager meal, something unspoken passed between them. A silent vow of mutual survival and hope. The dog accepted the food with a cautious yet sincere gratitude, its tail wagging weakly as if acknowledging the kindness bestowed upon it. Unbeknownst to Eliza, this seemingly ordinary act of compassion was about to intertwine her fate with a mystery that had long haunted the city. Just as the dog began to eat, a sleek, black car glided to a stop a few paces away. The vehicle's tinted windows concealed its occupants, but the atmosphere grew tense as a pair of figures emerged. Dressed in sharp suits and carrying an air of calculated authority, they moved with the precision of those accustomed to secretive errands. Their presence was out of place in the neglected alley, where poverty and survival reigned. For a brief moment, time seemed to pause. The quiet murmur of the city fell into an uneasy silence. Eliza, startled by the intrusion, clutched the hem of her worn dress. Her eyes darted between the mysterious figures and the starving dog, now resting comfortably on the cold pavement. The strangers exchanged quick glances, their expressions unreadable behind the veneer of professionalism. One of them pulled out a small notebook and scribbled something hastily, while the other scanned the area with a practiced gaze. The dog, as if sensing the underlying tension, lifted its head and gazed directly at one of the strangers, a look that was both defiant and imploring. In that charged moment, the stranger's focus shifted, and one of them approached Eliza. His voice was low and measured as he asked if she had seen anything unusual recently. He spoke of strange occurrences in the neighborhood, whispers of a crime that had disturbed the fragile peace. A string of unsolved burglaries targeting the poor, leaving behind cryptic clues and an unsettling sense of foreboding. His inquiry was gentle yet probing, as if he were piecing together fragments of a larger, hidden narrative. Eliza's heart pounded with both fear and a strange curiosity. How could her simple act of sharing lunch be connected to something so ominous? The man's words lingered in the air, intertwining with the soft sounds of the city awakening. As the dog finished its meal, it looked up once more, its eyes shining with an intelligence that defied its battered appearance. In that glance, there was a hint of recognition, a silent confirmation that this was not merely a stray but a sentinel in a story much larger than itself. The dog trotted away slowly, disappearing into the maze of backstreets, leaving Eliza and the two strangers with a sense of unspoken urgency. Eliza's gaze remained fixed on the path the dog had taken, her mind awash with questions. Who were these strangers? And why had they chosen this moment to disturb her morning? Was the dog merely an unfortunate soul in need, Or did it carry a secret message wrapped in its gaunt frame? The encounter left her trembling with anticipation and a budding realization that her life was on the cusp of transformation. One that might reveal the hidden truths of a city plagued by both human frailty and the dark undercurrents of crime. As the strangers returned to their car and drove off into the misty morning, Eliza clutched the memory of the encounter close to her heart. There was something inexplicably magical about the sequence of events, a delicate balance between the simplicity of kindness and the intricate web of a mystery that would soon unravel. In that fleeting moment, her act of compassion had sparked the beginning of an unexpected journey. It was a moment that would compel her to step beyond the confines of her modest existence, into a world where the stark realities of true crime collided with the luminous power of human empathy. In the quiet aftermath of that encounter, as the first rays of sunlight began to pierce the gloom, Eliza felt a profound shift within herself. She knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but also filled with revelations that would test her resilience and her capacity for forgiveness. It was here, in the interplay of light and shadow, that her story was poised to begin. A story of a poor girl, a starving dog, and a mystery that promised to unveil the unexpected magic of truth and redemption. Eliza's pulse still pounded as she stepped back into the familiar maze of narrow streets. The memory of that surreal encounter with the suited strangers and the soulful, starving dog haunted her thoughts like an echo. The early morning light was growing bolder now, pushing the shadows aside. Yet in her mind, dark undercurrents of mystery mingled with the golden hues. Her thoughts raced. Who were those men? What did they want? And most importantly, what secret did the dog seem to hold? With these questions swirling, Eliza resolved to follow her instincts, even if it meant venturing into parts of the city she had always avoided. Days passed in a blur of cautious observation. Eliza began noticing subtle signs. A discarded newspaper clipping about an unsolved burglary, the whispered conversations of neighbors about strange activities at night, and an odd recurring presence of the mysterious dog near the alley where she had shared her lunch. Late one afternoon, while making her way home from the local market, she spotted the familiar gaunt figure limping by a shuttered storefront. The dog, leaner than before yet filled with a peculiar determination, sat alert near the door. Drawn by an inexplicable compulsion, Eliza approached slowly, recalling the profound connection forged over a simple act of kindness. As she neared, the dog's eyes locked with hers, and for a brief moment, it seemed to communicate without words. The animal then trotted toward a hidden doorway behind a stack of old crates. Intrigued and unnerved, Eliza followed at a cautious distance. Inside, the space was scarcely lit, revealing a cluster of abandoned belongings and remnants of past lives. Amid the debris, she discovered a battered journal whose cover bore the insignia of a local newspaper. Its pages were filled with hurried, almost desperate scribbles that chronicled the inner workings of a covert investigation into a series of burglaries that had plagued the neighborhood. The words spoke of a vigilante, a figure who had taken it upon himself to uncover a hidden network of crime operating beneath the city's surface. Each entry revealed the investigator's struggle with moral dilemmas, the isolation of pursuing justice alone, and a haunting realization that even those deemed as heroes could be ensnared by darkness. Reading by the meager light of a flickering bulb, Eliza became immersed in the journal's narrative. It described clandestine meetings in the dead of night, cryptic clues left at crime scenes, and a relentless pursuit of truth by someone who risked everything. The pages hinted that the investigator, a man with a past shrouded in regret, had encountered an enigmatic figure, a stray dog that seemed to appear whenever hope was dwindling. The entries suggested that the dog was not simply a victim of neglect, but might have been a guardian of secrets, a living symbol connecting the disparate threads of crime, empathy, and retribution. Eliza's heart clenched as she realized that her own encounter was not an isolated moment of kindness, but a thread woven into a much larger tapestry of hidden truths and moral battles. Just as she closed the journal, footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. Eliza's breath caught in her throat. The sound was deliberate and measured. Instinctively, she pressed herself against the cool, rough wall, the journal clutched tightly in her trembling hands. The footsteps grew louder until a shadow fell across the doorway. A man entered, his expression etched with fatigue and haunted eyes that spoke of long nights wrestling with inner demons. He paused, glancing around as if searching for someone or something. In his hand, he held a faded photograph, its edges torn and colors dulled by time. The image was of a young man with a familiar spark in his eyes, standing next to a proud, once vibrant dog. The man's gaze drifted over the scattered remnants of the room until it landed on Eliza. There was no harshness in his look, only a profound sadness mingled with relief, as if his long search had finally reached a turning point. "Are you Eliza?" he asked softly, his voice resonating with cautious hope. Startled yet emboldened by the weight of the moment, she stepped forward, revealing herself. The man introduced himself as Daniel, a former detective who had turned his back on the system when corruption crept into its very heart. He explained that the burglaries and the hidden investigation chronicled in the journal were part of a much larger puzzle. Daniel had been tracking a secret syndicate that preyed on the vulnerable, using the guise of nightly crimes to cover up their darker deeds. The dog, he revealed, was more than a stray. It had been a silent witness, a living repository of evidence that connected the criminal underworld to the corridors of power. The photograph, he explained, was a reminder of the sacrifices made in pursuit of truth, and a promise to those who dared to challenge injustice. In the dim light of that forgotten room, as the weight of their revelations sank in, Eliza and Daniel forged an unlikely alliance. Her simple act of compassion had set in motion a chain of events that reached far beyond the boundaries of her once predictable existence. With the journal in hand and the mysterious dog as their guide, they vowed to unravel the threads of corruption and expose the truth hidden in plain sight. Daniel's resolve was tempered by years of bitter experience, while Eliza's youthful empathy and resilience shone as a beacon of hope amid the encroaching darkness. Together, they stepped into the uncertain labyrinth of crime and conscience, ready to confront the ghosts of the past and the enigmatic forces that thrived in the city's underbelly. The weight of the revelations pressed heavily on Eliza and Daniel as they stepped out into the cool evening air. The city, now shrouded in a veil of twilight, seemed to whisper secrets of its own, echoes of past misdeeds and hopes for redemption. With the journal's cryptic entries as their guide and the loyal dog ever present by their side, they were determined to confront the syndicate that had exploited the vulnerable for too long. Every step they took resonated with the urgency of exposing a truth that had long been suppressed beneath layers of corruption and fear. Their journey led them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a structure once vibrant with industry, now a silent monument to neglect and decay. Daniel explained that this location was suspected to be the nerve center of the clandestine network. As they approached, the sound of distant, muffled conversations drifted through the cold night air, mingling with the rhythmic tapping of raindrops. Shadows danced along the walls, and the atmosphere was charged with an electric tension that hinted at danger lurking just beyond sight. Inside the cavernous space, the interior was dimly lit by flickering fluorescent tubes. Rows of discarded furniture and rusted machinery formed a labyrinth of memories, each echoing the stories of those who had been used and forgotten. Eliza's heart pounded in her chest as they navigated the maze-like corridors, every creak and whisper amplifying the stakes of their mission. The dog led them confidently, its instincts unwavering as it weaved through debris and darkness, almost as if it remembered a past it had witnessed. In a secluded room, they discovered evidence that sent shivers down their spines. A series of meticulously organized ledgers, photographs of unsuspecting victims, and recordings of conversations that revealed the syndicate's true scope. Daniel's trained eyes scanned the documents, piecing together a narrative of betrayal and greed that spanned years. Eliza, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and determination, realized that the simple act of sharing her lunch had set in motion a domino effect of revelations that threatened to bring down an entire criminal empire. The moral implications of their findings were immense. The suffering inflicted upon innocent lives in the relentless pursuit of profit could no longer be ignored. As they collected and documented the evidence, an alarm suddenly shattered the oppressive silence. The harsh blare of sirens and the rapid footsteps of intruders converged upon them in a chaotic crescendo. Daniel's eyes narrowed, and he whispered urgently to Eliza, "We must hide now." In the blink of an eye, they darted into a shadowed alcove, the dogs staying close as if guarding their every move. The confrontation that followed was a tense ballet of stealth and resolve, as masked figures burst into the room, their voices laced with the authority of criminals who had long ruled in the dark. In that high-stakes moment, the struggle between truth and treachery reached its climax. For a long heartbeat, time seemed to freeze as Eliza and Daniel held their collective breath. Then, from somewhere beyond the immediate danger, the unmistakable sound of police radios and urgent commands filtered in. Daniel had managed to send a coded alert to a trusted contact, a former ally in law enforcement who had long sought justice against the syndicate. The arrival of the police was like a beacon piercing through the gloom, their presence promising to dismantle the machinery of corruption that had held the city in its vice-like grip. As the law enforcement officers swept in, a fierce yet orderly skirmish erupted. The criminals, caught off guard and disoriented by the unexpected intervention, retreated in disarray, leaving behind a trail of shattered plans and disrupted schemes. In the ensuing chaos, Daniel and Eliza seized the moment to ensure that every piece of incriminating evidence was secured. The dog, its eyes reflecting both loyalty and an almost human understanding, sat vigilantly by their side, as though it had been the guardian of this pivotal moment all along. In the aftermath, as the warehouse was secured and the criminals apprehended, a collective sigh of relief seemed to sweep through the space. Daniel and Eliza stood together, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of emergency lights, contemplating the magnitude of what had been achieved. They had not only exposed the dark underbelly of a criminal syndicate, but also reinforced the belief that even the smallest acts of compassion could spark transformative change. Eliza's initial kindness, her willingness to share a humble lunch with a starving dog, had cascaded into a sequence of events that redefined the course of justice in their community. Now, as dawn broke once again over the city, bathing it in a renewed light, a sense of hope began to replace the lingering shadows of despair. The evidence they had gathered would lead to further investigations and ultimately to the dismantling of a network that had preyed on the weak. More importantly, their journey underscored a profound truth: that empathy and courage can be potent tools against injustice. To all our viewers who have followed this story of mystery, redemption, and the incredible power of a single act of kindness, remember to subscribe, like, and share for more stories that illuminate the unseen corners of our world and reveal the magic hidden within the darkest of times. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and stay tuned for more tales that challenge the boundaries between myth and reality.